There are certain ways we have been doing things all our life, and then there are alternative perspectives. At Spill the Tea, we spill those alternatives or unconventional ideas. Hello, everyone. This is your host, PB from Spill the Tea Studios. I hope all of you are doing well. Tough times are back again in some countries, so stay home as much as you can and keep listening to podcasts. We are on our 19th episode today, and it gives me immense pleasure to join in with Andrew Chadbourne from Portland, United States. Hey, Andrew, how are you doing today?
Hi, BB. I'm doing great. I'm looking out, and it's going to be a beautiful day. So I'm so psyched.
Yeah, of course. Now, good to have you here. Now, Andrew. Talking about unconventional uh, things and their unconventional counterparts. I think none of us can disagree with the stereotypes or probably paradigms we have in our education field. Whether it is school, college, vocational education, or something as specialized as new language learning, most of the education system revolves around the marking system, and determines how good or bad you are. Of course, things are changing, and we are shifting to more modern ways, and Andrew is here today to share his views on active learning. Rather, I should call it motivational active learning. Now, Andrew, before I proceed, tell us something about yourself.
Well, BB, it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm very excited to share my thoughts with your listeners. Me, I started out in Maine in the Northeast United States.
Mhm.
It's a small rural state. And from there, I ended up going to Brazil to study for a year. I worked in Japan. I've lived in Malaysia. And over the years, I've seen a lot of different ways that people learn, whether it's schooling, whether it's training, and whether it's self-education. And I have got some very strong and some very unconventional opinions about how we do this stuff.
Fantastic, Andrew. And you spoke about Malaysia. Actually, there's where I met you. So glad to meet you and to join you today here. So, Andrew, tell us about how did you pick your career? I mean, how did it start? What ignited your interest in uh, this career which you are in right now?
I guess you could say my career found me, or rather, I uncovered my career.
Okay.
I had thought about going to school and becoming a college professor. That was my dream. Didn't do so well academically. I wasn't always the most motivated student. In fact, the education system didn't support the way I learned.
Mhm.
I had to repeat the first grade. So when I graduated from high school, I was already a little older than most of my peers.
Mhm.
I went to school, thought I was going to study abroad for a year, didn't end up going because of paperwork snags, ended up taking a semester off, working and doing some self-study on the side. After I came back from having worked, boy, was I motivated. And then I graduated from school during a recession.
Mm.
Very few jobs available, ended up working in the family business, which I enjoyed, but it was limited.
Yeah.
It didn't support my objectives. So I ended up bouncing around, and I ended up at a bank. Banks are good. banks are secure jobs. Ooh, banking, it's impressive, guys in the suits and everything. So there I was. First, I started in a call center, and I enjoyed that because I was talking to people.
Yeah.
Then they moved the call center an hour north. I was already driving an hour to get to work. So forget that. So I transferred into a branch, and I became a customer service representative. I helped customers open up new accounts, charge them if they overdrew, and I supervised some tellers.
Mhm.
Great job, right?
Yeah.
I hated it.
Wow. Okay.
I went
That's a
from
twist.
making a living to making a dying.
Wow.
My mother showed me a magazine article on stress. It had 2 pages of symptoms of stress. I had all but one of them. So it was awful. So one day I walked into my boss's office. I said, Tom, I'm resigning effective immediately, moving to Japan, and I'm going to teach English.
Wow. And that's how your career found you.
Yeah, that's how my career found me. I had done some substitute teaching when I was a college student in university. So I thought, I like this. So, but I didn't think, teaching wasn't a career that you could make a lot of money with. So I was like, I wasn't really interested in teaching. I didn't see myself as a teacher. So, but having been in business, I found I didn't like business. So off to Japan I went. I was so much happier.
Right.
Because it put me into a new environment where I was forced to learn. But to tell you the truth, BB, I had an awful first year. And I had an almost as awful second year. But I was determined to make it work.
Yeah.
And I started to learn a little Japanese. My life got a little easier with that. And from there, I ended up staying 19 years and 7 months.
Wow. 19 years. I mean, almost 20 years in Japan.
Yes.
That's unconventional. I mean, the story, how, you bounce from one thing to another, and finally you kind of spent 20 years of your life in the East, in the Far East, Now, that's very interesting, lots of questions bouncing in my head right now. Now, before I get them, to those questions, let me ask you this. What is your opinion about traditional education system, since we are talking about the education? And most importantly, how does it affect the professional much later in his or her career?
I'm so glad you asked that. The traditional education system, which we call the Prussian model, was developed in the late 19th century in Prussia to produce compliant factory workers and middle managers. It was not designed to educate the elite. It was designed to educate followers.
Okay.
And the whole model is based on the teacher teaching a passive group of learners. The idea is, if you can sit through school, it means that you can follow instructions during the course of the workday.
Yeah.
So they wanted to weed out the people who couldn't keep their butts in seats. They wanted to weed out the people who wouldn't follow instructions. So that's why you get people who are rebellious. They call them rebellious. It just means they don't fit in that model. So there've been tweaks along the way, they introduced audio visual equipment over the years, and that the equipment has evolved slightly. Though you go into a school, you will still find slide projectors and overhead projectors with the clear film that the teacher writes on the screen, which quite honestly, teachers probably didn't use enough. So teachers weren't comfortable with technology. They were taught to use paper-based.
Yeah.
And let's face it, a piece of paper is not interactive unless you're folding it up and making something with it, or you're drawing or writing on it.
Right.
So I think the whole model is just wrong. We learn through stories.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Usually teachers, they lecture, but they're not always telling stories. They're not always engaging. The thing is, if I tell you a story, you can turn around and tell someone else that story. But the way learning is spat out at students, it's not usually in the form of a story. So that's why people have problems learning. And if you look at the workplace, it's people doing what we're doing. We're interacting.
Yeah.
We're working on problems. And we're thinking, we're contributing. But in the classroom, we're expected to work individually, quietly, and it doesn't build skills that you need in the workplace, like how to cooperate, how to ask questions.
Right.
And another thing is, in the modern workplace, you often will need to do presentations in front of groups of people, whether it's your own team, management, or customers.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get that in school. Presentations are afterthoughts to material that, here, learn this material and make a presentation.
Right.
And most kids are like, I don't know how to make a presentation. They don't, because we don't teach them. Right. So we set them up, we throw them in the deep end of the pool, and then you won't have another presentation for months.
Mm.
And there's very little feedback. People don't have time to get over their shyness or their just outright fear of doing this. So I've talked with people, you get people, they graduate from school, whether it's high school or college or whatever, they walk into the workplace, they're not ready.
Yeah, true. I mean, I totally agree with all that you said. And one thing that stands out probably, the storytelling, in the learning process. Now, I completely remember, though we haven't shared this before about, I haven't known about this about you, that, you have worked in a call center and then shifted to a customer service job. You hated that job, and you one fine day, you went to Tom and said that, hey, I need to move ahead. So I really remember that, and I can remember that transition until you reached Japan and started your career as a English educator. So Andrew, have you been a classroom educator, like stand and deliver kind of, or mostly an online educator? I mean, what was the mix?
BB, I started by getting my toe wet in the traditional education system. Okay. When I was a student in university, mm-hmm. I did some substitute teaching.
Okay.
When I was on breaks, mm-hmm. Either during like May, June, or that year, that the semester that I took off that I mentioned earlier, when I was supposed to have gone abroad and I didn't. I did substitute teaching. I found I liked it. Wasn't really wild about the environment. Mm-hmm. And then when I was an exchange student in Brazil, mm-hmm. what I did is I worked for an English language school there, teaching English. And it was small groups, adults. Yeah, it was a mix of, it was mostly adults, but there were some high school students, university students. And I started learning how to teach there. So it was on the job training.
Yeah.
I learned some people skills there. And I did a semester of that and I loved it. This is great. So I went back to the US, graduated from school, and then did nothing that I liked, nothing that I was passionate about. There were things I liked, but it's nothing I wanted to spend my rest of my life doing. And because to do all of that, I needed to go back to school. To go back to school, I needed money, but I also needed to work.
Yeah.
So I was in that catch-22. So
Right.
finally, it's like, the heck with this. The pain was so much that I just quit, moved, and then I got to Japan. I liked teaching.
Yeah.
Didn't particularly like the company I was working for, but I stuck it out, built my teaching skills up. I did small classes of no more than 3 students or 4 students at a time, often 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And got feedback all the time about my teaching because it was a business. So the students were interviewed by the staff, and then they came back and they provided us with feedback on how to teach. There was some initial instruction on how to teach, how to plan lessons, but nothing really about teaching.
Oh.
And I built it up through a combination of on-the-job experience and what I learned through Toastmasters and going to seminars.
I wanted to bring that up, and good that you mentioned this. Now, one thing that I am very, I kind of look up to you, and many people who know you do the same, Now, which brings me to a point like speaking with impact. Now, what do you think? What's your opinion on this statement, like speaking with impact, and how important it is?
It is super important.
Okay.
Most people don't do it.
Yeah, true.
The thing is, we are not taught to speak to an audience. And God knows in school, up until this last year, we weren't expected, for most people, weren't expected to speak in front of an audience on screen, on a camera.
True. Yeah.
Before, there was studios and you were presenting, you had this big camera and people were looking into the camera, By the way, folks, look into the camera. Don't look at the screen, look into the camera. We leave this lying on the table, so to speak, because it's not part of the traditional curriculum of reading, writing, and arithmetic, the 3 R's, as we call them in the United States, which are the basic skills that you need to succeed in the industrial age. But now we're in the information age. We need creativity, we need logical thinking, we need people skills, we need presentation skills. And unfortunately, our late 19th century education model is still struggling to produce graduates who are effective. In some places in the United States, even they can't even produce graduates who can read at the appropriate grade level because their discipline has completely broken down. The discipline system. And it's much to do with teachers' unions and their political agenda, unfortunately. And that's beyond the scope of this podcast. Because my focus is on how a person, whether they're a student or an adult learner, whether you're a professional or you're retired and you're learning for your own personal enrichment, I'm concerned with helping people learn better so they can make their lives better and make the world a happier, healthier, wealthier place.
Fantastic. I mean,
Uh, and my mission in life is to create 100,000 people who can learn faster and better.
incredible. I mean, that's pretty good to know. I can sense some new project is coming on the way. However, before going that, Andrew, now yes, speaking about the shift in the teaching profession, I mean process, not profession, process, and the learning experience, the change which we have seen in the last 2 years. I mean, what do you see currently? What are people lacking in this learning experience, like this in the virtual world?
Well, in the virtual world, when you go on camera, you lose a lot of the nonverbal communication,
Yeah.
the facial expressions, the body
Yeah.
language.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the audio as well. The sound quality is effective. People don't know how to effectively present on camera. You see a lot of like this, where like fingers get chopped off. Like there's only they have like fingers. Is like it reminds me of like sea creatures like waving, like sticking out their little tubes. So I want to say a hand. If you're gonna make a point, show me your finger.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting, Andrew. So, are you going to include this? I mean, tell us about your new project and what value will it bring it to the new learning system that we are discussing right now.
All right. Well, thanks for asking, BB. Besides my quote day job, which was only a part-time job while I transitioned into other things, but it took off due to the pandemic. My plans to do what I'm going to do originally were based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, but thanks pandemic, now I'm skipping the intermediary steps and going right to the final step, which is I am going to launch this month a coaching service for professionals and entrepreneurs and maybe competitive speakers who need to build a presentation from the ground up in English. I have talked with and learned with a lot of wonderful people in business who've got great ideas, they've got passion, but their English sucks.
Yep.
So I'm going to take their ideas for them, and I'm going to shape them, stretch them in a workshop online. I'm going to help you write and improve. So through a series of iterations, we will build up your presentation, your sales pitches from broken English into bringing in the sales. We're going to go from putting people off to persuading people.
Fantastic. I mean, that's really, Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, and it's like we're not going to do it the scary way. It's like it's going to be an iterative process that people can. You start with what you're comfortable with what you know, and then I help you expand it and flesh it out. We'll get good grammar, and we'll get scintillating sales presentations as well. So not only do I tell you how to say it, what to say, I'll tell you how to say it in English. The timing, the cadence, accent reduction, and all the body language that you need to be a successful business person and presenter and persuader and seller on the world stage in English today.
Fantastic. Awesome, Andrew. I mean, and yes, I mean, it's more important right now than before the pandemic, because it's a global stage right now. Like sitting here in India, I do work with teams based in US, in Europe, in China, in ASEAN, And then there are language barriers. I mean, definitely there are language barriers. And right, you just said it right. People have great ideas, but they are not able to articulate it well, or probably, and then express it well. So I think that's very much needed of what you are doing in this small little global village we are in today. Now, you know uh, there's something interesting, like, you spoke about not being a very successful, being successful in academics, and but still people do call you professor. That kind of resonates, because I'm a sales coach. Neither do I was very great in academics, but even I was called as professor, in my earlier job. And I like helping people. So it's like minds, we are coming together. Now, my question is, what do you think about self learning for yourself? Because even as a trainer or a teacher or a coach, it is very essential to keep the axe sharp. I mean, learning new things every day, so that you get to help others. So where and how do you feed your learning brain, Andrew?
All right, good question, BB.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's all self-learning. You
Mhm.
can put somebody into a classroom or a conference room and
Okay.
teach them or train them, but the learner has to learn by themselves. It all happens, each one of us, in our own brain.
Right.
So if you're passionate about something,
Mhm.
it's not work. That's the thing. People will follow content or learning. If they're passionate about something, you can learn it.
Yeah.
If your need is great enough, you will learn that material. I used to go to the library when I was a kid, come home with like 4 or 5 books, as many as they let me take out, read the stack of books in the 2 weeks, and then bring them back to the library. And the librarian's like, "You're gonna take out that many books?" Yeah, because I loved it. My mother always said, like, when I was a kid, she was like, "Where's Andrew? He's probably got his nose in a book." I loved learning. And to
Yeah.
me, reading was entertainment. It was pure fun. For the ancient Greeks, learning was entertainment. It was
Yeah.
not work. So I think, if the problem is, for much of what we do today for learning, we're not learning the way we biologically, naturally like to learn. People will fight themselves. Literally, they are holding themselves back with their learning. The number one thing is, I hear is, "Oh, I hate this. I hate studying. I hate learning English. I hate math." I didn't do well in mathematics when I was a kid. Loved science, but wasn't good in math, so didn't go that route. The thing is, your subconscious mind, your mind is listening attentively to everything that you say. If you say, "I hate math, I hate English," it says, "Okay, I understand," and then will make it harder to learn those things. But if you say, "I love this. Oh, this is great. This is so interesting. This is fascinating," when you are presented with that subject, you're all of a sudden, you're focused, you're curious, you're attentive, and your mood is up. When you say, "I hate this," your energy goes down, your defenses go up. So the thing is, people come into learning with the wrong mindset.
Okay.
You need to be curious. You need to make yourself excited. You may need to do a little mind state preparation before you sit down to learn. And you have to keep telling yourself, "This is really interesting. I can do this. I learned this easily." You've got to take that little voice inside your head
Yeah.
And you've got to turn it from your critic and your opponent into your supporter. It's got to become your cheering section. You need to be your number one coach. You need to be your number one supporter. So the thing is, after you've learned something, what you need to do is just what someone who, like, running across the finish line, what do? Yay, I won, yeah! But the thing is, people studying at home, especially like languages, they'll take a lesson and they don't see a change. You know, if you're playing tennis, if you hit the ball over the net, you see a change right away.
Yeah.
But people know you've got to practice in tennis. And the thing is, it works the same way in language. I've had people come into language learning and, well, how often are you going to study? Oh, once a week or only on weekends. Well, you can if you want to learn slowly. The thing is, the more time you put into it, the better you get, the faster you get. It's just like any other thing. Repetition, practice, but there's a right way and a wrong way. One is be your number one fan, be your number one coach. Your coach tells you, you've got this, you can do this. All right. So you've got to tell yourself, I've got this, I can do this. Use language that encourages and empowers and excites. So that's the way to do it, instead of, hey, I gotta go. So, and the thing is also, people don't schedule themselves the right way. If you're going to learn, if you and I decide we're going to go play tennis, we decide on the day, date, and time to do it. I don't walk out the door and expect to find you on the tennis court and you're thinking, oh, I guess I'll go on Saturday. And here it is Thursday for me. No, we got to be there at the same time, the same place. So you need to schedule your learning and protect it. A lot of people, they regard their learning as secondary. I mean, did you like go do other things during the middle of the school day? I mean, if you've got a business training, do you walk out of the business training because you feel like doing something else? No, that's your activity. So I wish I could say that I got this idea on my own, but what you do is you use a point system to motivate yourself. First, you schedule it.
Right.
Look at your schedule. When do you have open blocks of time? Okay. Are you a morning person or are you a night owl? Pick learning that works with your circadian rhythm. Pick learning where you've got open time, and schedule the classes. Try to do them at the same day. Make it a habit. Okay. Habits are the easy things to do. You don't make it hard for you to do. Learning should be the default activity. Also, tie it to another habit you have. For example, if you get a cup of tea or coffee in the morning, when you get your cup of tea or coffee ready, open up your laptop for your learning, or open up your book, whatever it is, the materials you're going to use. Tie it to another habit. Then when you're learning, after that, you need to review. And with that, you're going to use the 27-24 rule, the 27-24 rule.
Okay.
After you learn something, you should review it within 20 minutes. Then you need to review it in 24 hours. So I said 27, it's 20-24-7, sorry.
20-24-7. Okay.
Yeah, the 20-24-7 rule. So review in 20 minutes to lock it into your memory. Then you need to review the material again within 24 hours. And then you need to learn the material again within a week, within 7 days. This is spaced repetition. You are training your memory to remember it longer term. You
Yeah.
can buy flashcard applications now that will actually do this, and they'll take the learning all the way up to 6 months. So, and looking at material printed down on a page is not learning.
Yeah.
There is recall, and then there is actually remembering.
Right.
Recall and remembering are different. If you look at something on a page, like, oh yeah, I remember that. But the thing is, for example, if you're learning English, what you need to do is you need to say the thing that you learned again.
Right.
Speak it out loud.
Yes.
And use it. Just don't look at it. Highlighting is not learning. Highlighting is a waste of time.
Yeah.
Right. If you are reading something, write a question. You can use the highlighter to find your question and to find the point that you want to be talking about. Write a question, because that gets your mind working.
Yeah.
So if you do that, you're going to support your memory in the way you learn. If you're not doing that, you are not learning the way your brain learns. You're fighting yourself, and you're probably wasting time and money. Now, there are two other components to learning, and they're the same as exercise. Like if you're like training, like you want to be an Olympic weightlifter, the Olympics are going on now, you want to be an athlete, there's the training, then there's sleep and nutrition. People neglect this, but a good night's sleep is key to remembering anything.
Yep.
It is when we sleep that is when memories are locked into, consolidated in our brains. So that those neural connections are being built. The brain cells are embedding into your brain, into that network. So if you aren't getting enough sleep, you're wasting that learning session you had because you're not locking it in.
Yeah.
And then nutrition. It goes without saying, you should eat a healthy diet. Junk food does not help you remember. Junk food does not get your body into, or in your brain, into an optimal learning state. Yeah. Now, the body can work on carbohydrates, and we like that. Yeah. To the single best fuel for the brain is brown fat. And brown fat is the name that for the fat that circulates through our body. It's not external, but it's what's in our body. That's your brain's preferred fuel. If you learn in the morning, what you can do is fast. And then one thing I've done in the past is I've used bulletproof coffee. It's coffee that has organic grass-fed butter and MCT oil, medium chain triglycerides. It's a super coconut oil. Your brain loves healthy fats. It does not like the fat that you get in French fries or fish and chips, but good quality fats. Your brain will be so sharp and clear. It's amazing. So if you can fast for several hours, like overnight, and then start with only fat in your breakfast, you can sprinkle MCT oil over a salad or over any kind of food. This, because your brain loves it. Your brain will perform like a race car, a Formula One race car, as opposed to like a diesel bus. It's gonna be zipping down fast. So, and I find if I eat vegetables the day before, and I come in the next day, my body has then processed the vegetables and extracted the nutrients so much better than just carbohydrates. I mean, yes, rice keeps you going, noodles keep you going, but the thing is, rice and noodles are not brain food. They are food to keep, they're food that keeps farmers and factory workers going. If you want your brain to work, you've got to have good quality, complex carbohydrates in the form of vegetables to sustain yourself, but ideally that brown fat.
I mean, you know what, Andrew? I was totally. I was listening. I mean, so there's a book and there are a few papers just behind this desk. There's a desk here, and there are a lot of papers where I have just highlighted stuffs because I'm learning Mandarin. And all you said, you know, it just kind of came flashed in front of me. But this is what I'm going to remember. You know, the 24/7 formula, and you know, the second one is resting, good night's sleep, and the third thing is the brain food or brain fuel, you know. And that's how, and if in the next 3 to 6 months until you launch your new project, because definitely, you know, you are doing this for people who want to learn English and not Mandarin, so I'm not going to join you there, but I'm going to use this formula which you had taught me today. So I'm going to come back to you in 3 months and tell you what's my experience. Okay.
All right.
So
All right.
speaking about yeah.
Now, BB, there's one other component, the motivational component. You know, oftentimes people start something, they either because they need to, they're being pushed, or because they want to, they're being pulled.
Right.
But sometimes over the long term, it can be difficult to sustain that motivation. In fact, motivation is something that needs to be constantly renewed. So what I use is a point system. And this point system will work for work, it will work for exercise, it will work for learning, pretty much anything. Is what I do is after I've scheduled what I'm going to learn, the next step is I assign points. So for example, when I was learning Japanese, I decided every day I was going to study for 2 hours.
Okay.
I took my 2 hours and I broke it up into 15-minute blocks. Okay. And for each 15-minute block, I assigned 1 point. Now, someone may decide they want to do 10 minutes equals 1 point. They might decide 1 minute equals 1 point. The idea is that you need to be able to have some way of keeping score. So what you do is you've got your schedule for the day up there, and then you write the day on a piece of paper somewhere where you can see it. I would put it on the wall next to me. So I've written, I don't know if you can see, Thursday.
Yeah.
So what I do is every time I studied, I would make a mark, and then I make another mark, and then I make another mark. So I was going to study for 2 hours. So that meant I needed 8 points for the day. So every time I studied for 15 minutes, I would make a mark on the piece of paper. And for me, making that mark was like, yes, I got it. When I made the mark, the next step is, yes, I did a physical action. I celebrated the win. You have to celebrate every win. Why do you do the point system? 1, it's a way of keeping track. 2, when you mark it, you're getting a physical reaction and support of the mental activity that you're doing. Okay. So that part, and then I reinforce the activity with a yes, with a celebration, because this yes, like this, when we do this, it generates an explosion of happy chemicals in our brains. Like our brains love this. So even if you're not excited about it, just go, yes, I did it. Your brain doesn't know the difference between pretending to be excited and being excited. It thinks it's the same thing. So work with it. So I do my points. I get my 8 points for the day. And then every time I'm like, yes. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, yay, I did it. Woo! Just like your coach, be your number one coach. And then comes the reward. At the end of the day, after you've gotten all your points, give yourself a reward.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's like 8 points. I also had a stretch goal. So maybe I could get 10 points in a day. So I had a 10 point. So points, lock it in with a celebration, and then a big celebration at the end of the day. Then I repeated that every day. I did that for the week also. So say, for example, one day, you're studying Mandarin.
Yeah.
So tomorrow turns out, oh my gosh, all sorts of problems at work and at home. You never get to studying Mandarin. Mm-hmm. So not to worry. That day, you didn't get any points, but you can shift those points onto the other days of the week and make up those points. So at the end of the week, you still make your point total for the week.
Yeah.
So then I celebrate and I get a reward at the end of the week. Then same thing, points for daily points, weekly points. I count the weeks out of the month, and I have a monthly point total that I'm looking for and a reward. Okay.
I have, go ahead.
Yes. And then what you do is from there, I take it out. I call it a course or a semester. You take your monthlies and then you decide how long you're going to study for. Maybe you're taking a language exam, like a TOEIC test or a Chinese certification test, like 9 months from now. Your course would be the 9 months. At the end of that 9 months, after tracking your progress daily, weekly, monthly, and rewarding yourself, you get a big reward at the end. I don't know, for some people, it might be buying a computer. Other people, it might be going on a vacation, something you enjoy. I mean, like your reward and my reward might be different. Personally, I just find marking it off is like excites me. So that helps. Now, some people, for the reward, it might not be enough. Now, there are negative rewards you can use. I had one student, he got his reward was that he'd go drinking at the end of the week with his friends. But the thing is, for some people, if you don't make your point total, maybe you don't get something, you get punished. Like, for example, maybe you don't get to watch movies on the weekends, or you don't get to go drinking with your friends, or you don't get to play tennis, whatever it is, something you really like, but it's going to hurt if you don't get that. So it's going to cause a little pain. So if you need that extra push of a negative, then take away something if you don't make your point totals. Now, it's going to be important. At first, you may find you're always meeting your targets. So maybe you need to increase your points that you do. If you're never making it, maybe you need to readjust and have set a lower goal. So figure it out. You can balance it over time.
Awesome. I was excited to ask you about the reward system, because my questions will be very funny. On a Friday at the end of the 5 days, can I reward myself with a heavy carb diet, like a biryani or something? And you just answered that. And you know what? The funny thing is, tomorrow is Friday, and if I start with this point system from tomorrow, which I will, I promise you, maybe tomorrow night I am going to reward myself with a biryani. And then, in the morning, I'll keep the fat, the brain food in mind. Well, Andrew, it was lovely talking to you. I think all the potential learners, your prospective students who will be joining you, will really be excited to join you, to learn from you, especially go through this learning process. Now, This is the last question, which I will ask to all our guests from now on, to tell us about that one thing they will like to change, about what they are really passionate about. You spoke about many things, and we can, I can see your passion coming out. Now, let me just ask you this, and I'm starting this with you today. Tell us, what will you like to change in the learning system? One thing.
Well, baby, my passion is to transform education from a teacher-centric passive system into a learner-centric interactive system. I want learning to be loud, with laughter and with interaction. I want learners' brains going. I want teachers to be facilitators. And I want to see those happy little kids going in like the first year of school. They're all excited and talking, their energy's up. Come out the last year of school just as excited to go into the classroom and just as happy coming out, instead of the I gotta go to school oh, thank God that day's over. I want people excited to go in to learn. I want people to be stimulated, enthused about the learning system, and I want to throw out the Prussian model, and I want to bring in a model for the 21st century.
Fantastic. So, moving from the teacher-centric model to a interactive learning model,
learner-centric,
and that's all about motivational active learning. Fantastic, Andrew. Where can our listeners find you?
You can find me at Andrew Chadbourne on Facebook and LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter.
Okay, would you like to tell your Instagram handle here? What's your Instagram handle?
So I will leave you the link, because I have to create a brand new. I have to create a brand new Instagram.
Right.
The brand new account for that.
Fantastic. No worries.
You can for that.
You can share those with me, and when we are releasing this podcast, we are going to include those links in there so that people can find you and then connect with you. And all the best to you, Andrew. We'll stay connected. It was lovely. It was a lovely talk. The point system, I'm going to remember them along with all the other tips which you had shared with me. For our listeners, please do follow us on Spill the Tea Pods at Instagram, and you can visit our brand new website, which is www.spilltheteapods.com. Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew. Take care, and have a nice day.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.